Okay, we are live. Bismillah, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Welcome to the Muslim Real podcast. I'm your host Ismail Howell, and again I'm with my sheikh, my brother, my ustad, Maria Tucker. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother. Nice to be back here again. It's been a while, brother. It's been a couple of months still,
Yeah, it's
but
been a while.
we're back.
Yeah, we're back. I mean, due to the what's going on in Gaza, it's kind of knocked me to for six as to the way forward. And I was contemplating doing other topics, and it's like, well, let me just take a break now and kind of reflect on this situation. We've been here before. What's going on in Afghanistan, in Libya, Iraq, and now we're here again. Um, and what I want to discuss with you today, we're going to discuss a few topics. Obviously, this is Muslim Real, so we're going to get real, brother. We're going to get real.
Inshallah.
Obviously the title of the thing is, what have we learned about the world today after the events of 7th October? What do we understand about how the world functions? What do we understand about the Muslim Ummah and its situation? What can we extract from it to say, you know what, from this is khair, from this it's good for us, and we have to build upon it and improve, etc., because you can get frustrated or you can be optimistic. So I want to ask you a question. How do you feel about the events, or how do you feel about the world after this event on the 7th of October? The response of the world, or how the world even functions when such a thing happens to human beings. How are you feeling about it? What comes to mind?
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulihi kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Um, I guess everyone pretty much feels the same or similar, but it's been relentless, man. Emotionally,
Mm,
it's been quite intense. And I think the last time we had issues in Palestine, I think I was actually studying in Saudi at the time during the Intifada.
mm,
Um, and I think what's made this situation so much more visceral, so much more intense,
mm,
is the fact that we had front row seats. So I remember during the time of the first Intifada, the only real news access I got was from Arab news and maybe some
mm,
stuff on BBC and stuff like that. So essentially, we had only the main news outlets giving
mm,
us information if and when they decide to do so. And I'll be honest with you that at the time, I didn't pay as much attention to it because it was the information about it wasn't very clear. What was going on, why it was going on,
mm,
and access to that information wasn't that, to me anyway, at the time wasn't readily available to me.
mm,
But in saying that, I remember at the time one of the most significant things I remember at the time was that Saudi Arabia did a national fundraiser, a televised fundraiser,
mm,
where people came in. You know, people sold their houses, women gave up their jewelry. They just literally gave everything,
mm,
and I think that they raised about 4 billion reals at the time,
mm,
and that's a large amount of money they raised for Palestine. And I remember there was a large queue of aid buses, convoys taking aid to Palestine or to Israel, or whatever. And at the time, the Israelis didn't let it in because they said they might have bullets in the dates. I remember all these things. I remember,
mm,
but I think the difference in the Intifada then was largely almost like a civil disobedience, civil uprising. People throwing stones, that kind of stuff. It
yeah.
wasn't it was it wasn't what we're looking at now.
Mm,
Um, so it wasn't so intense, and and it soon got, the Intifada stopped. People stopped kind of rebelling, and then people would return back to their lives and moved on. But now it's intense. I mean, just initially, let's just take a step back. Actually, that was a bit of a long intro. Initially, when I saw some videos circulating on Twitter of guys and guns and people being taken as hostages, I didn't know what was going on, but I didn't really pay much attention, to be honest. On the actual 7th, I wasn't really. I mean, I heard Hamas went in, they did a few things, but I didn't know what was going on. I think I have to be honest. I think it was only after on the 8th or the 9th, maybe a day or two after that, where things like to unfold. Because I think at the time on the 7th, it was still unfolding. It was not really clear what was going on. But on the 8th and the 9th, when it began to unfold, the immediate thing that I noticed off the bat straight away was the bombardment of lies. And it was clear it was lies, because the 40 beheaded babies, that's almost become like a meme. It's a meme of the whole conflict. It's like, seriously, they did that. I'm like, come on, man.
State lies. This is coming from government. This is state lies. This is not even a comedian. This is state lies.
But I mean,
so
what it is? It's like it was so out. You almost say out of character, and that's weird to say that, because I never really followed Hamas that way. I didn't. I knew Hamas existed, but not who of us actually followed what Hamas doing, what their ethos is, what their message is. No one followed what they're doing, but but at the very least, we knew that beheading babies is just not part of the.
It's not in their characteristic.
It's not in the manhaj. It's not part of the manhaj.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, I thought, okay, here we go. The lies are gonna start. But I'll be honest with you, I thought that it was just gonna be an issue where they spread a few lies, and then it'll be a cacophony of lies, and then I don't know what will happen next. But I think the most shocking thing was that from then until today, it's been constant lies, and the lies have been so stupid. I'm not sure. I even said the other day, I'm not sure if it's either a deliberate humiliation from Allah, or they weren't prepared for this, and they're frantically trying to make up as much. I don't know. I can't explain it. I can't explain how badly they are doing on this front.
But do you think they have to lie intentionally to justify what they're doing and what they plan to do? Like, okay, we're gonna make up lies that they're doing the worst of things so it can justify us doing a genocide, because they probably don't even believe the lies anyway. I think they just like, let's just put anything out because we need to kill everybody. We need to commit a genocide. We're going to take advantage of the situation. So we need to, the sad thing is that the mainstream media, everyone peddled the same thing and didn't question, like, are you guys really serious about them beheading babies, raping old age pensioners? It was just like, you guys are just joking now. But they do it up until today. They're still peddling the same lies.
I mean, one of the things I said, and I said it many, many, many times, is that what this actually has revealed to me, and I'm sure to many others, is that if this is if this is the lies that they've been telling today, that we really can, that almost all of them have been exposed purely because of social media, the ease of access of information. It really begs the question: what else have they lied about from the past? I mean, we always knew that there were lies, but they kind of came to us through weird channels, I mean, going back to September 11th, we heard about the lies and Building 7. We heard about the lies, but they were always through conspiratorial documentaries that you can find maybe on Channel 4 on Friday night. Even if you go back further, and this is one of the things that really is come to light to me specifically, is when you start looking back at history, you find that what's happening today has actually happened many times before. It's not actually
Yes.
the first time. It's actually probably the 10th time they've done this. And the same lies have been repeated. Human
Mm,
shields, the thing, the barbaric, and these people are animals. The same thing that they're repeated from
mm.
the 60s. And you have to start asking yourself, wait, how long have we... Yeah, you have to start questioning the narrative of historical events going way back now.
Yes. No, but the thing is, when we sorry, when we speak about history, we always think, oh, those colonial days were in the past. Like they used to colonize places. They used to massacre millions of people. They killed the natives to America by giving them smallpox and whatever. They went to New Zealand, but you think it's in the past now because it's been dubbed into our mind. Oh, we're the civilized nation now. That we have we have the UN, we have human rights. We live in a rule-based system. So you think, okay, those things happened in the past, but look, it's the same thing, bruv.
Yeah,
There's no change. It's just people in
another
suits. Mm,
that's another reality, which it became so vivid and bright and brilliant when I saw a video of Malcolm X
hmm
talking about the situation in his time,
hmm
and I made a comment on a video that it sounds as though he's talking about today. If he actually was to
hmm
remove the who's talking and remove the black and white image, I would
hmm
say that this person's commenting on what's happening now in Gaza,
hmm
just to indicate how much that this is been happening for a while. And
hmm
like I said, I think what's different now is social media is bringing it to the surface that we are all seeing it in our faces. And I think what's interesting enough is I can even see now why Americans really hate TikTok. Back in the day, why they want to shut it down, because literally TikTok has been
hmm
at the forefront. And I mean, ironically, I don't have a TikTok. I don't actually use TikTok at all.
Yes.
When I first heard about TikTok, I made an account. I logged in. I saw what it
Well,
was
is it
about.
a Chinese tech company? TikTok.
Apparently, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I'm saying what's being said is that the youth who are on it, they're sharing the details,
hmm
and
hmm
the youth are getting they're getting front row seats to the carnage. And I think
Okay.
I think for some people it's a shock. For
hmm
me, it wasn't a shock
hmm
that this is how they are, but it's a shock that we're seeing it and
hmm
they're actively still trying to block it. I think that's what also shocked people, is that okay, we're seeing it before. You got away with it because no one knew about it, but now we're all seeing it.
Yeah.
It's actually shocking that you're still trying to support it. You're trying to veto it. You're trying to abstain from it. You're trying to support
hmm
Israel in this, even though we're all seeing it. Although the cat's out of the bag, we've all seen, as I said, the king naked. We're all seeing what they are about.
Yes. Who's
And
they? We need to kind of define they, because it's like, do do they want us to be blind or to turn off our TVs or put our head in the sand? Like, we can see murdering people and supporting this genocide, but yet we can't say, well, they are doing it. Like, yeah, UK, America, whoever is supporting Israel are actually supporting the genocide in plain sight. And what do they expect the public to do? What do they expect the other person, the general people, to do when you've been teaching us about how civilized you are, about, and the worst thing is they always talk about, yeah, the third world countries, they're backward. We have civilization and we have rule of law. And then you behave like this. Like, it's
yeah, I mean,
so frustrating. It's like, come on.
yeah, I think. there's so much to unpack. I find it hard to articulate in a concise manner about going on a rant. But I think
Mm,
one thing that's become vividly obvious to many. I mean, for me, it's always been there. It's always been obvious. I've always had the idea that this is who they are, and what's always
mm,
frustrated me is that others haven't seen it. But um, now I think the cat's out of the bag, and everyone sees it. I mean, I'm seeing comments from Kufar saying, "Oh, I can't believe this. That they're like this, and I can't believe this is how it is."
mm,
And I'm like, yeah, but we've seen this stuff for years. I mean, even I
mm.
saw there's one guy called Owen Jones. I think he's an MP or
Yes.
somehow, yeah. he made a video just today about how he's being censored on Facebook, and I smiled to myself and laughed because
Yes.
we've been dealing with censorship for a while. It's yeah, okay, welcome to the club kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's like
Yes.
you're seeing now what we're all
What it's like to be
seeing.
discriminated about? What's like to be discriminated against?
Yeah. So I think that, like I said, there's so much to unpack. Back to the question about the day. I think what is apparent,
Mm-hmm.
and I think from all the different things of content I have absorbed and consumed, there's different narratives. Some say that the Americans are controlled by Zionists. Some
Mm-hmm.
say that the West is controlled by the Zionist lobby or the Israeli lobby. Some say no, this is down to interests that they have, that Israel is a
Resources.
proxy to the region.
Yes. Yes.
I believe,
Yeah, I think it's
and
all
this
of
is
them.
yeah, but I think it is all of them. But I believe that Occam's razor. I think that it's just basically everyone's acting in their own interests. Everyone is acting in their own
Yes.
interests.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, and I think that is the easiest way to understand the way of the world as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you hear someone say, "Oh, so and so is being controlled by so and so,"
Mm-hmm.
that it would be nice to think that, yeah, literally someone makes a phone call, Netanyahu makes a phone call to Biden, make this happen, otherwise I control you. That's not how. I don't think that's how it works. I
Mm.
think everyone has their interests at mind, and they weigh the pros and cons of what they can gain from something, what they can lose from something. So
Mm-hmm.
America, as much as they have the Zionist lobby and the rest of it, and all these candidates are being sponsored by, I think is it AIPAC or some
APAC,
APAC or
APAC,
one,
yeah, APAC
yeah,
and
AIPAC
others.
conference and others. Yeah, I'm sure that is a factor,
Mm-hmm.
no doubt. But like I said, it's just self-interest, meaning that they find a value in having Israel slap bang in the middle of the Muslim nations. If you look at the map
Mm.
of North
Mm.
Africa and the Middle East and Central Asia, what separates the one side of the world, Africa, from the other side of the world, which is Asia, is literally in the middle, Israel.
Yes.
It
Mm-hmm.
has so much strategic value that if for example, Israel was to be somehow become a Palestinian state or an Arab state,
Yes. Yes.
it would strongly push aside Western interest. I mean,
Yes.
the funny thing is, I think you would find a lot of it's weird actually to think about a lot of political decisions and strategic decisions are actually made on just simple geography. Think about it for a second.
Mm.
America, the United States of America, is nowhere near the rest of the world. It's all the way over there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You have the whole of Africa and the whole of Asia and Europe
Mm.
attached to that. You have two major land masses where the
Mm.
majority of mankind exists. And you have
Yeah.
America all the way over there on the other side of the Atlantic.
Yes.
That's why America puts a lot of emphasis on having strategic allies that they can leverage their influence in this region.
Mm-hmm.
So, as the famous same statement from Joe Biden, if there wasn't Israel, we would create one.
You
Meaning,
create it. You agree.
if there wasn't a place that they can have
Mm.
direct influence over,
Mm-hmm.
then it will strongly diminish their influence in the region. Now, what I think also is the case is that I don't think America really anticipated that Israel would do something like this. Astaghfirullah, I shouldn't
Mm.
laugh. I mean, Israel is their boy, yeah, is their man in the region.
Mm.
But I think, it's almost like you imagine you're part of a gang. Yeah, you're part of a gang. You and your boys, they run a certain manner. But there's one guy who's just gone crazy. He's shooting
Yes.
people up. He's doing all sorts of madness. Now you don't really want a war with other gangs. You want to just continue doing your
Yes.
thing in your area. But my man's going crazy.
Mm. Mm.
If you now go up against your guy, that's a sign of weakness against your people, and that's like showing that there's a divide amongst
Yeah.
your gang. And other gangs
Mm.
might say, you know what, there's an avenue here for moving in. So you kind of have to back your boy,
Mm.
although he's gone crazy. And I think, especially when you look at some of the press conference releases or discussions, you literally see on
Mm.
their faces they don't believe their BS. They're
That's what
literally
I'm
lying through
saying.
their teeth. They're lying through their teeth. They're trying their best to
Mm.
make up stuff on the spot
Mhm.
just to try and keep this thing afloat, whilst my man's going crazy. So I think literally, bringing that back to reality, the question now is, although Biden says there's no red line and he's
Mm.
willing to back Israel all the way, I don't think that's true. I think that's where I think the role of protesting and political pressure across the globe, and which you've seen more and more countries applying more
Mm.
pressure, and the damage that's been done to the US influence in the global majority or the global
Mhm.
south, some will call it. I think some people start, would draw a line. He said he wouldn't draw a line, but I think there would be a line to be drawn. But what that line is, I don't know.
Okay, I mean the issue, the reality is they're able to draw the line wherever they want to draw the line. That might mean 20,000 civilians, 30,000 foot, etc.
No. See, that's the thing. It's that the civilians is not the line I'm talking about. They're not talking about that kind of line. That is a line. That is an issue. Public unrest. But there is that. I think financial lines are are greater
Yes.
things. So this coalition they tried to have with these countries to try and push back what the Houthis are doing.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't due to public pressure. No one was asking for that to happen, but they actually got warships involved to go on and police a certain area just for money because that's to do with global trade. You know what I'm saying? So I think their line. I think before the civilian line, there's definitely a
Just saying
financial line.
their biggest. Forget about the moral. It's not about morals. It's about the finances. So
Yeah,
they will
100%.
carry on their genocide until either people stop them militarily or it's not cost effective.
See,
It's nothing about Palestinian lives. It's nothing about morals, rule of law. This is wrong. It's all about, well, okay, if we can get away with it to secure our interests, we're gonna do it. But if it's not cost effective, then we're gonna have to stop. So it's either a military loss against the resistance, or it's a financial loss, i.e., the Houthis mash up the Red Sea, and people are losing so much trade that it's not sustainable financially. Because it's no red line. It's no red line morally. They've gone past the red line morally anyway. Like they don't care about killing people.
No. But like I said, the issue of the moral thing, the moral question. I said I'm not saying it's not. There are no moral red lines, but you have to look at it from the context of money, as in there are no moral red lines until. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Ahlan wa sahlan. There are no moral red lines until those moral red lines begin to interfere with the bottom line, which is the financial red line. You know what I'm saying? So, for example, and this I mentioned this in I had an ongoing course. I haven't finished it. I got to go back to it. I kind of stopped it for a reason, but I got it's to do with Islamic finance or Islamic economic system, not finance, Islamic economic system. And one of the things that I highlighted in explaining what is the Islamic economic system compared to the capitalist system is that the Islamic economic system has a moral framework which underpins it. So there may be things that you may do that that are financially disadvantageous. It doesn't work out as it makes sense to do the opposite if you're talking about finances, but because of the moral implications are far more greater and more serious. So, for example, and that's one thing I mentioned to people about when it comes to the topic of riba, interest, is that clearly there are financial incentives for interest. Clearly, a lot of money can be made through riba, through interest. No one can tell me that there aren't financial benefits to the one lending that money when it comes to interest or riba. But the issue why Islam makes it haram is because the moral implications far outweighs the financial implications, and that's the crux of the difference between the Islamic economic model and the capitalist or Western capitalist economic model, whereby morals don't play a role in our financial decisions. It's not. It's about what our shareholders want to have, what our shareholders are invested. They didn't employ you or put you as a CEO to a company to worry about morals or to ask the moral question. All they ask you to do is increase our holding, increase
Our
the value
bottom
of
line.
our bottom line. So back to the point of the red lines. So
Which
for
is
example,
what,
Rishi
which,
Sunak.
I was just going to say, which is why, because of the superiority of the Islamic economic model, we have to be working to implement this model. Do you get what I'm saying? Well, we know it's fantastic. We know it's more model. We know it's more just. But then, are we actually working to implement it? Well, we're going to come to that later. Let me just get Yusuf warmed up. Assalamu alaikum, Ustad. How you doing, Sheikh?
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
You're good.
Alhamdulillah.
So we're going to get you warmed up. I'm going to ask you a question straight, just to get you warmed up on the topic. What have you, as an individual, learnt about the world, how it works, how it functions, since the events of 7th of October? Where's your heart at? Where's your mind is at? Like, what comes to your mind?
As we mentioned before, I think it's not so much what we've learned. It's things which we already knew, we were already told about, but perhaps we forgot them or we became complacent. So, you know, as they say, the one who sees is not like the one who sees something is not like the one who hears something.
Yes.
You hear that? Yeah, that you know, the Jews and the Christians, they will never be pleased with you until you follow their way. Jews and the Christians, they're friends of each other. We know these things from the Quran. We know these things from the Sunnah. We know from the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ how he dealt with people of the book and how they dealt with him in return. So we're aware of these things, but it's when you see the reality of it actually then it reminds you, oh, I shouldn't have been so careless. I should have been paying more attention.
You know, like just as you see your children grow up, and obviously we've grown up in England, and there's a full sense of security. Like we think everything's gonna be okay. Like we just want peace. Oh, something's happening to my thing. Is it glitching on your side?
But you see, it can hear you fine, but it can hear you fine. It's just a bit of
so
glitching.
The issue is we live in a full sense of security that everything's going to be okay. Why are there wars? We should live in peaceful coexistence. And we say, yeah, but that's not the reality of the world. The reality of the world is, I'm going to come back in a second. The reality of the world is there's always going to be a push, evil against good and vice versa. That's the reality of the world.
Maybe turn your camera on and off. Maybe turn your camera on and off because the camera's
getting let me check. So I'm going to leave you with that. The fact that there is no peaceful status quo in our time. And why is that? And I'll leave that for you to discuss that while I just sort out my camera.
I mean, one thing I think I have to slightly disagree on, and I'm willing to be corrected on this one, is that I think there are two separate fronts going on here. As in, I don't believe that the people in political power or influence over this conflict are really acting on a religious basis. I think for them, it's pure money. It's pure money and control and power. Now, the people on the ground, they're different. There are some who are invested emotionally or invested ideologically, but I think the people at the top, I don't think they really care about any of that stuff, really. I think it's just purely about strategic value, strategic expansionism. I wouldn't be surprised if all of them are all atheists or totally heathenistic. I don't think it really is a religious thing. I could be wrong, but I think the vast majority of those in charge are looking at it purely from money. They may be using rhetoric or religious rhetoric, like you're referring to your Amalek, and we're going to deal with Amalek. That's all for the plebs, the people on the ground, to convince them of some kind of, a bit like what Putin did with when he mentioned about being the head of the Orthodox Church, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's interesting how you start getting religious when you want to get people, when you ask people to die for you, you start quoting scripture. But I don't think it really is about it. I think it's purely financial, and I think at that level, the only real way that one could realistically influence them this way or the other is exactly that way. And that's why I was going to say that it's not a surprise to me that as soon as BP announced that they're going to stop sending boats through the Red Sea, within 2 hours, Rishi Sunak called for a ceasefire. I don't see that as a with all the people dying, 15,000, 16,000, now 20,000. There was no mention of a ceasefire. But the moment there was a financial implication, i.e., with BP, who I think his wife is somewhat connected to BP, we find that there's a call for a ceasefire. So I think that is what's at play here, and I think us on the ground, we shouldn't confuse ideological reasons and motivations that we would think that would have, or that we are told, with pure calculated cost analysis thing that they're making. I mean, as in, don't be surprised that they're actually calculating, okay, how many soldiers can we sacrifice, and how many can we get away with, so that we can, secure this oil pipeline, or this gas stream here, or this oil field here, or this gas field here. It's all about, for us, it's all about the finances, and Allah's best. Sheikh Yusuf, add to that, something from that. You have that look. You have that look when you're thinking, I'm not sure if I agree.
I mean, I see your point, but there is regardless, they're disbelievers anyway. They rejected the last message, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. From them, they rejected the Masih. But I mean, obviously, they're in love with the wealth of this world, and they want to have control. They want to have power. They want to have wealth. But I don't know if it's one or the other, or if there's an overlap. Because by the fact that you have a people who believe that they are the chosen people, and because they're chosen people, they can do whatever they want. And as Allah mentions in Surah Baqarah, that they believe that the fire will only touch them for a fixed amount of days.
Yes.
They believe in their own books, which they've written with their own hands. This land has been promised to them.
Mm-hmm.
And also you have those from amongst the Christians who believe that the Jews, they are the chosen people. They have to be gathered in this place in order for the second coming of Jesus, who was judge. So I can see your point, but I don't see if it's either or. Are they doing it for purely religious reasons, or are they doing it for worldly reasons? I think it hasn't overlapped, and obviously in different individuals and different groups, it may be one side or more to the other. But I don't think it's one or the other. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree that is I would say a large part of it for people on the ground.
Yeah.
I'm just not convinced that the people at the top. I'm not like, again, I'm not saying at the top. I don't even mean like people like the media. I mean people who are your Black Rocks and your major people who are moving trillions of dollars around. I think for them, I think it's just opportunity of what Ismail was talking about, an opportunity of further expansionism. Israel is like an opportunity. I've heard some others describe it. It's like Israel is almost like an opportunity to do what we used to do without having that dirt on our hands. If that makes sense. Because I saw a production talking about how America actually has used Israel for decades to do the things that they couldn't get away with legally, or they couldn't get away with openly. Whether it be invading some South American countries, training militias, all these kind of things. Israel's been like an extension, almost like a Black Ops kind of extension to the US military
in the Middle East.
So they serve interests. So for example, why would they send so much money in aid to Israel
every year?
It doesn't make any sense not even religiously, not because I mean there are people who you could support on a religious level, as in fellow Christians, that you could do that across the globe. But why Israel so much? And that's because Israel is able to do certain things that others can't do, and that's just a fact. Certain things Israel can get away with either by not being part of certain treaties and whatnot. They can get away with so much that
murder, genocide,
murder, that kind of stuff. They can get away with that kind of. But I think what the problem we're looking at now is that what they're doing is number one is open. We can all witness it. Everyone can see it. And number two, I'm actually quite convinced that even they are shocked about what Israel is doing. I generally believe that even I see him, the guy. What's that guy? The guy who traveled to the Middle East to try and talk to everyone. I can't forget his name.
Oh, Blinken.
Not Biden. Is it Blinken? Yeah, Blinken. Yeah. Even his face and his behaviors when certain people are talking about certain things that Israel is doing, you can all see that uncomfortable, that kind of crud, kind of how are we going to navigate this one? How are we going to navigate this? So I think there is that happening whereby even America is taken aback with what Israel is doing. And I think they're hoping and praying that Israel just finishes quickly. They can go back to business. I think, and I think it's not going to happen. And I think and hope, and I really hope this is something I really hope. I hope that the damage to their reputation has been so severe and so sustained that the other countries in the global majority or the global South, who also listen carefully, who also act in their own selfish interests. Let's not fool ourselves that any country acts on a particular righteous level or moral level. Everyone acts on their own selfish interests to either for themselves or their people. I'm hoping that they've been so put off by what the double standards that America has demonstrated, that they will pivot away from the West. I'm hoping that it will be sustained and it will be maintained. That for me, what I'll be looking for will be more active de-dollarization. If countries actually start saying, you know what, as long as we're using the dollar, as long as we're buying these US treasuries, as long as we're embedded financially within their system, we can't really oppose them, because opposing them will be imposing us. This is what I'm saying, that globalization has brought nations together, whereby they are all intrinsically attached at the hip. Now, the only way you can really oppose, and that's again why America can't really just turn their backs on Israel, because they're actually attached on so many levels at the hip. Same thing in England, by the way. I think Loki released a video talking about how much England is complicit and in bed with Israel. It's not just because ideological; it's really on a serious level when it comes to sharing intelligence, when it comes to sharing of technologies, lots of things. I mean, a lot of Israeli military components are made in England, and obviously weapon sales is a large part of England's GDP. So you see, you can't just turn away from your money. You know what I'm saying?
They're in bed together. They're in bed together, basically.
They're in bed together. So I'm saying, well, I'm hoping, and I ask Allah to make it happen. I'm hoping that people will look at this and think this is absolutely ridiculous, and they're so disgusted that they will think, we can't sustain this relationship, and we have to find ways to at least reduce our dependency or reduce our connection with the West, so it gives them more autonomy. And if that happens, then I think it would allow for these other countries to grow. We've already seen it happen with Niger kicking out France. We see more smaller countries being more brave, more brazen when being independent. We had Kenya talking about de-dollarization. Kenya talking about why are we using the dollar. There are a lot of countries making those moves. We have in the BRICS nations growing. We have Pakistan applying to join the BRICS nations. Iran is applying to join the BRICS nation. Saudi Arabia has already joined. I should be joining in January. So we started seeing a pivot away from the West towards the global majority, which is why I think we should start calling it the global majority, i.e. the rest of the world, not just America and Europe,
Yeah.
but the rest of the world are not on this, and we're not going to be things. So I've had a long rant, but the point is, I think at the top level, I think it's all about self-interests, their economy, their finances, what they can achieve themselves, and I'm hoping that it will no longer be in their self-interest to be that much inclined or aligned with America, and Allah knows best.
Okay, excellent. My point is that we're kind of waiting, and let's say I'm saying the Muslim Ummah, the Muslims are waiting for other countries to, as you said, not use the dollar, to set up other financial groupings, the BRICS and whatever. My point is that, well, okay, we know from the Quran, you know, the people say they come to make peace, but really they are just creating facade on the earth. And we are supposed to be pushing back on it, so enjoying the good and forbidding the evil. That's our obligation.
As in the plebs on the ground, or the governments? Okay,
I'm talking about us as Muslims, and I'm talking about we get to the government later on. My question is to us is, rather than waiting for other governments to leave America, what are we pushing against in order to speed up that change? Are we lobbying? Are we trying to affect politics to make sure that these people are doing this genocide and helping genocide should be sidelined? How can we sideline them? What are we doing? So you know what? We need to get in political positions, economic positions, rather than saying we're waiting for, I don't know, Argentina, Belgium, France. Like, they're all buddies, brother. So who is it that's going to now push against these colonial powers and sideline them if the Muslims don't also, start pushing? Like, we're always relying upon others to do this for us. Do you get what I'm saying? What mechanisms are in place so that we can also start pushing and sidelining these colonial powers? And that's a big question, but we've got to start pushing rather than, and my point is that as a Muslim Ummah, we shouldn't be where we are right now. You understand? Why are we in this particular position? Don't we think or believe that we should be the people who should be running this dunya? Is it not our fault? Should we just blame ourselves rather than waiting for others to do this work for us?
Sheikh Yusuf, تفضل.
That is a big question, isn't it?
Brother, okay, it's time for big questions, man. We're big men now. You get what I'm saying? It's time for big questions. You know what I'm saying? It's time for big questions.
See, the thing is, what's the ayat? Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas. You are all nations, and you've been taken out for mankind. So this is something which Allah has placed upon the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They fulfilled this.
Yes, and the Salaf fulfilled that. Yes,
without a doubt. We're still benefiting from their hard work and those people who followed them. But for us to get to that, I mean, that's what we should aim for.
Oh, is it an aim? First, is it an aim? Do we have it as an aim? Do we have it as a target?
I don't know if it even occurs to us. But I think even to aim for something, there has to be the practical steps. Steps has to be, on an individual basis. We need to return back to our deen. All that we're responsible for, as in, obviously, and we need to be united upon it, which means having the correct belief, worshipping Allah alone, following the Sunnah, fulfilling the rights of our Muslim brothers, rectification between us, our families, our children. So there's a lot that needs to be done, because I think in these situations, when a Muslim will say, when a Muslim on a public platform will say, or a speaker or imam of a masjid or community, and they'll say, brothers, this is due to our sins, we need to return to our deen. Muslims will say, Yeah, we know that. But what we're going to do, or even sometimes people who say this, it will be like, people will become angry with, other Muslims will become angry with them and say, why are you blaming us? Why are you blaming the victims and stuff like this? So we need to look at the bigger picture, but at the same time, I was thinking, this has been nearly 3 months now. Are masajid more full? Are people making tawbah? Are we leaving our sins? Are we? There should be an increase in our deen, isn't it? If these, and without this, I don't think we can unite. I don't think we can sort out the problems. If you see what I mean.
I see what you mean. Okay, just say, okay, we know the dunya's busted right now, right? UN is done. There's no going back to what you call international law. It's busted, done.
Yeah.
But we got to think, okay, we have Islam, we have the Sharia. Let's push that forward. How do we push that forward in this dunya? We've got to have people who are capable or in those positions that can push the Sharia forward or influence the current system. So I get it. This is a wake up call. Like, if we don't smell the coffee now, it's like we're never going to smell the coffee. There needs to be political power, economic power. So when we're teaching the deen to others, what we're saying is the goal. What's the goal? Okay, you might say the people in the UK, the people in the UK, we have a goal. Okay, we just need to survive. We need to just get to the mosque and pray. Like, if we can get to the mosque and pray, or wear hijab, or grow your beard, we think, all right, we've made it. We're Multazim now.
Not made
you know what I'm saying? But we don't think. Are we thinking higher than that? Like, yo, why is there discrimination against a child who's got a Palestinian scarf on his badge on his jacket? Do we have school governors in that school that's gonna get rid of that head teacher if that's the case? Or we say, well, okay, well, no, don't worry about that, brother. And I'm gonna let the Akwanis do that. Let the Akwanis get on. We're busy memorizing Sulu Salatha. You get what I'm saying? Like, there needs to be some joined up thinking and planning so that we can affect all areas of this dunya. Do you get what I'm saying? I think there's Faddal.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing of so I think that there's two approaches to this. In my view, I think there's two approaches to. Hold on, I missed this one now. Going back, so my AirPods are dying. I'll try to switch shopping around. There's two approaches to this. So, the first thing I would say is that some people look at that the people who are in control of things are the big corporations and the governments, and that is very true to a large degree. As in, there are, you could say, our modern day version of Ahl al-Hali wal-Aqd, those who are in charge of affairs, directly or indirectly, they are in charge of affairs. But because their power is built around capital and the acquisition of capital, I think what we don't realize is how much we have influence over them. I think one of the things that they managed to achieve, and all hats off to them, they've done a good job so far, is that they've achieved the mass deception that we don't matter. I mean, if you think about it, even now, with all these protests, I mean, I may have mentioned on Twitter, I said, okay, we've protested, we've done all the protesting, and they've heard our message. The whole purpose of protest is that they hear our message. They've heard it. What we don't realize, or what people don't realize, is that the purpose of a protest is to deliver a message. What people fail to realize is when the government has given us their response.
Meaning they're carrying doing what they're doing.
Thank you very much. We protested. We made it clear we're not happy with it, and this has been unprecedented protest globally. I don't think there's ever an example of sustained protests with numbers in our lifetimes like this. And
But what are you saying
England,
then?
America
Are you saying don't bother protest?
No. What I'm saying is, if you're looking at the steps to correction,
yes.
Step 1 was taken. Protest. Voice your grievance. It was taken. But part of that step is to also listen. As well as you're speaking, as anyone who's married, you would know. If you're having a whinge at your husband, you have to listen to what he's saying back to you, as well as talk to him. There has to be a feedback. Otherwise, it's going to be talk. You're never going to stop talking, and you're never going to realize that what you're doing is no longer effective. And if you don't realize what you're doing is no longer effective, you need to start moving on to step 2, and step 3, and step 4. So back to the point I'm saying is that the other.
But I'm with you. Sorry to cut you, but does that mean that we negate step 1?
No.
Why?
I'm getting to that now. Is that the other take about this is to say that actually, and this is a take I lean towards. Actually, the governments don't have, or governments and these people of power don't have as much power as we think they have. In fact, they only have the power that we give them.
Individually or collectively?
Collectively. So what I mean by that is, if we as a collective wanted X to happen, we could make X happen. However, and one of the reasons why we could is because we are not as immoral as they are. Well, okay, let me explain what I mean by immoral. I don't mean that they're evil. I'm sure some of them are. I don't mean that. What I mean by immoral, as in, like I said to you at the beginning, their only primary directive, whether they like it or not, they might even like it, but they have to act within the paradigm. The only prerogative they have is to make money. They have to do whatever it takes to make money. So they act immorally because that's dictated from them of their job. Because if they start acting morally and losing money, they'll lose their job. So they have to act immorally. But the interesting part about that is that the people don't have to act that way. We don't have shareholders to address or shareholders to work towards. We can act morally. And that means we can say, I am not going to have my money and capital go towards X. I'm going to starve you from your capital as a collective, and we can do that. And there's nothing you can do to stop us. So I'm saying this is where you look at step 2s and step 3s. So boycotting, for example, is one of those steps, because a boycott, if sustained, coordinated, and impactful, would actually push the needle more than just protest. A protest, like I said, protest is very important. I'm not saying it's not important. A protest verbalizes intent.
Yeah.
But like I said, you have to also listen to the response to that verbalization. You have to listen. And if the government is allowing you to protest in the corner, but yet still voting to veto the global call for ceasefire, that's telling you we don't care what you're saying. We don't care what you're doing. You can do what you want on the streets.
Yeah, what you're saying is not impacting us, so we're going to carry on anyway.
They're going to carry on anyway because they've done the cost basis, the cost
analysis
based analysis that cost based analysis that okay, we're going to lose X, Y, Z points on the ballot or on our votes, but what we're going to gain in continuing sustaining it is more. That's basically what it is. You start thinking like this. Why would they sustain such a reputational suicidal act unless the alternative is so much more profitable? You have to start thinking about it, because that's how they operate.
Yeah,
they operate on a capitalist. Yeah, but we don't operate that way. But this is why I'm going to make that caveat, and this is the important caveat I'm hoping people will listen to and understand and think about. However, we do act that way sometimes, and let me tell you why. I'm gonna throw a question out there to you guys and to whoever's listening at home. How many people do you know who are on the streets, protesting, raising their voices, retweeting, sharing posts, sharing awareness of Palestine about the onslaught and blah, blah, blah. How many of those people are you confident are willing to lose their job over it?
Get you.
So now you start to realize that actually because of the society we live in, we also in a way act like them as well. As in, as long as it doesn't cost us financially, we're happy to make the lip service. Unless we start acting in a way where morals trump income,
yes,
and we are prepared to actually make real sacrifices, then realistically, we're not really reaching our full potential. And I'm saying that there's level 2, 3, and 4 of influence. If we start realizing the influences that we can have, as long as we start acting morally and prioritize these morals over our own pockets, at that point we become dangerous.
Okay.
At that point we become dangerous because they can't bribe us anymore.
Yes.
I could say right now on Twitter, guys, this month refuse to pay your mortgage. Everyone refuse to pay your mortgage. They're gonna write to you. They're gonna say they're gonna take your house. But if we all do it together, they can't take away all our houses. But we're gonna have to risk that headache. I guarantee you, people. It's easy to repost and retweet.
Yes.
But how many of us are gonna make that sacrifice? That's what I'm saying. So that's why
on that point there, protesting. Their man just said, "You carry on doing your thing. We're gonna carry on doing this genocide." All right. So we have to take it to step 2, which means.
I'm not saying don't protest anymore. I'm not saying.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying okay.
Don't protest. Okay.
It's part of it's one of the arrows, or one of the strings in the bow. Protesting. Okay. So they carry on their genocides. We gotta go to step 2. Step 2 is that we're gonna have some sacrifice. Now, my point is this: are we as a Muslim community putting it out there that in order to stop this genocide, we have to start sacrificing some of the food that we might like to eat, some of the clothes that we might like to wear, some of the places we might like to go? Are we at that stage, or is that message being put out by us that in order to stop these people, we have to start sacrificing some of the dunya? And to be honest, the fast food that we eat is bad for you anyway. The soft drinks is bad for you anyway. Some of the clothes they're making, you can get something cheaper elsewhere, and it could also give opportunities for ethical businesses to come around and do something sensible. So, are we at that stage of sacrificing? And are we giving the message to the ummah that we have to start sacrificing in order to survive, in order to live, in a better place? Is that message being put out?
I mean, just briefly, because I don't want to give an opportunity to comment on more on this, but just on a brief note, I think we've seen these lists of things to boycott.
Yes.
And I kind of smile ironically when I see these lists, because I find myself looking for the things that I actually do buy from them. Most of the stuff on the list I don't buy anyway. So I'm not even. Unfortunately, I'm not even in that world anyway to have that influence.
Got you.
And I think what I've learned, what we all have learned, hopefully, is that we should actually, not just the boycott, but just generally moving forward, we should actually start prioritizing local business, prioritizing our local cash and carries, Muslim organization, Muslim establishments, but not even just Muslim. Maybe we're not Muslim establishment, but ethical, and we should start acting better that. But I want to also draw everyone's attention that there's so much more you can do that doesn't involve just the food. And you know me, Mr. Bitcoin guy, I'm saying there are ways in which you can attack the system way beyond just the food. Why do we still have our monies in their bank accounts? What do you reckon would happen if all of us drew our money out of the bank account right now? Just went by cash, just cash. I don't like cash anyway. But I'm saying, imagine all of us said, you know what? Fair enough. Ban all of you guys, especially even your banking system, because I know that you guys need capital, and you don't, and cash is a problem for you guys. That's another way of what's it called? Of boycotting. Lots of things they can hit them harder than just the food. Food is a small thing.
Yes, I know.
It's just one avenue, but there are other things that you can do. There are other things that you can do. For example, as an example of getting more aggressive. If we all coordinate and say, you know what, this month we're not gonna pay our gas bill. No, the thing is, legally, they can say, okay, you have 28 days to pay it. You're gonna be late and that kind of stuff. But okay, in those 28 days, which you cannot pay, you can not pay and nothing bad happen to you. If we all did that together, you see what I'm saying? There's more we can do to be more aggressive. To push. The issue is pushing the needle. Like I said, you have to keep this in your mind. I want to stop here and let you go. But I want everyone to have this thing in their mind. How can I push the needle whereby that calculation that they're doing in their head, it's more profitable to support Israel, whereby that is no longer the case. You're not trying to appeal to their morals. You're trying to convince them that it's the right thing to do.
It's wrong.
They all know it's wrong. They all know it's wrong. But the issue is, it's more profitable or more beneficial to be on this side of the fence. You want to make it so costly, so expensive that to be here just doesn't make sense anymore.
Got you.
And I'll let Yusuf for that.
Check yourself. Be realistic, man. This is Muslim real, man. You have to be real, Yusuf. Come on, man.
Protesting and boycotting. I mean, I'm not denying their part or benefits, etc., or reasons why people do it. Isn't it for us? We should first understand what the problem is, what the cause of the problem, what is the solution, and it's obviously we have to return to our deen. So even if people protest, even if they boycott, if we as Muslims we don't return to our deen, then I mean they may have some kind of some short-lived temporary benefits. But are these just ideas or options because we feel that we can't do anything else, so we should do something, so let's protest, let's boycott? I mean, for me, the idea of boycotting is, I think it's a no-brainer. Someone's using the money to kill innocent people. I mean, first, there are Muslim brothers and sisters. It's Muslim. It's the land of Masjid al-Aqsa. So this has it. But even if it was just innocent people, regardless of their religious background, someone's using money to kill them, then it's a no-brainer. You don't want to give them your money. You give it to someone else. You don't spend in their shop. You spend in another shop. But we're talking about this thing to solve the problem. Isn't this because we're avoiding the not avoiding, but we're not. It seems like we feel like we're helpless, so let's do something. But the real thing is, Muslims, we need to return to our deen. Muslims, we need to be praying 5 times a day. We need to be up hijab. We need to avoid the haram. We need to, like when we talk about taking the money out of the banking system, obviously Islamically this interest-based banking system shouldn't exist. But wages, people get money from the government, etc. But if people are going to, some people are going to take their money out of the banking system, but then we have Muslims in our community who their house is on a mortgage. A young brother and a sister, they get married, all the family and relatives telling them, you need to get a mortgage. We know it's haram, but everyone else is doing it. Or Muslims, we're doing business, and when we want to open our business, when we want to expand, we're getting so, I mean, this, like, for example, sometimes people, they compare this to, because we have non-Muslims who are, alhamdulillah, they can see the oppression, they can see the occupation, they can see the slaughter, the massacre. We have non-Muslims who are, from what we can see, they have good intent, they want to help, etc. They're part of this process. They're part
movement.
So their ideas, and when they discuss South Africa and the boycotts and the protests and what it done there, but I still think it still goes back to the religious affair, because if you had the people who are running the apartheid state in South Africa, and then they see it no longer beneficial for them, then obviously they're going to, they left the country, they got rid of the apartheid system, but they took all of their investment out of the country. But I don't think they would ever do that with Israel, because of that religious reason, that they believe they are the chosen people, and that this land has been promised to them from the Nile to the Euphrates and stuff like this. So I don't. It's the same. I don't think it's the same situation where you can apply the same solution.
My when people say that the word, we need to get back to our deen, right? It's as if to say the word deen deals with mu'amalat, our individual worship, and it doesn't combine with the jama'ah, the ummah. So people say, get back to your deen. So I'm gonna learn my belief. I'm going to start praying, doing my sunnahs, whatever. And then it's if to say, okay, when I get to a certain level, I'm now going to add on to my deen. Okay, what's my role in the community? And then after, I'm going to add on what's the role of the Muslim Ummah in the world? Like it's a separate
I understand. Yeah.
plug, separate puzzle. But it contains everything. Wherever, say in individual, he may work in the council, for example, and he starts practicing. So he's not going to say to himself, okay, let me wait till I've memorized this and done this before I try to influence the education system within schools. It's the same process as him learning how to pray, learning his aqidah. You can say, you know what, we need to actually not propagate this transgender something to the kids. I need to be able to influence that. And then whatever position you're in employment or social or whatever, it's part of the same. So when people say, oh, we need to get back to our deen, until when do we say, well, okay, we need to protect the Muslim Ummah, we need to look out for the poor people,
well, that all
to be honest, in our tarbiyya, you might say, in our education in the UK, like, don't talk about politics, don't talk about nothing, sit down and learn manhaj and aqidah. So it's like, well, okay, you're not learning the deen from the point of, you people have been gifted with, you're the last ummah, you've been gifted with the obligation to spread Islam, enjoy the good and forbid the evil at every level in the world. But it's like, well, now just learn your deen first and then wait for others to do that job. I think what the worst thing, which is very annoying, and I'll give an example. So when this first transgender thing came and they're putting books in schools, some brother organized a protest. So I was in this WhatsApp group. So them man organizing this process, but they're Ikhwanis. But that was his thing. Yeah, it's good, but they're Ikhwanis. As if to say, we Salafis, we don't participate in organizing protests to save our kids from transgender. That's what them man do. You understand? So there is a kind of separation when people say, learn your deen first, learn your manhaj, learn your aqidah. But when them man are doing something else, we don't support it because them man is a Ikhwan. So there's a disconnect.
Yeah, and sometimes, or even a lot of times, we may benefit from their efforts. So, for example, if a school,
why isn't it our efforts? Why isn't it our efforts?
Yeah, that's why I agree with you, because perhaps a school wants to prevent hijab or something like this, or the girls, or they want to close the prayer area.
Yeah,
or they won't allow a Jummah Salah, and then, alhamdulillah, Muslim brothers and sisters. But if people want to use the word other ideas, backgrounds, if they make certain effort and we stay, we may benefit from their effort. So I think we need guidance on these issues, because I think sometimes it's possible for the ulama, they will give a ruling based on their land, their situation, their environment, and then we will just take that, or that ruling will be presented to us and say, in London, in Manchester, in etc. So we need some.
Sheikh Moria, we need fatwa now. Let's ask the student from the Faculty of Sharia.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's an important point. Sorry to cut you. That's an important point. How we, what's the word I'm looking for? Implement the deen in the UK. Our urf, our culture, is different from outside the UK. So in which case, the point is, should we, if we're seeking fatwa about what we can do in the UK, should we seek it from the ulama in the UK, if there are any? But anyway, that's another topic altogether.
So I mean, definitely, when it comes to a fatwa, a fatwa is basically, you could say, either a legal ruling or a answer to a question. I prefer just a simple answer to a question. When it's a legal ruling, it's better to say an answer to a question, because sometimes when you ask fatwa, you ask a scholar a question, it's not necessarily a halal haram situation. Often it's just advice. And unfortunately, some brothers take this advice as if it's a halal haram conversation rather than the sheikh giving advice. And unfortunately, some people take this advice so serious that they make it a manhaj issue or an issue of dispute and argument. So, like, even just yesterday or the day before, one brother on Twitter went out on me, take it to a level of, opposing the ulama and blah blah blah.
So what did you do?
Exactly, what did I do? Oh, because I think Bitcoin is a currency we should use. A topic about Bitcoin. So he's now making an issue of manhaj, throwing around words like sururi and so on and so forth because of Bitcoin. I mean, it's ridiculous. What's been anyway, we've gone on a tangent. Back to what. So
yes.
So in terms of the issue of the West, now a scholar, to answer a question, only needs to understand the situation, the question that's been asked. Often, unfortunately, the ones who are asking the questions, and it's not always, but it is often enough to pay note of it. Often, the way in which questions are asked is with a previously made conviction. They already have an idea of what the answer should be, and they either intentionally or unintentionally word it in a way that gives a certain answer. I mean, we see that very clearly with the whole Better the Club with Imran Khan talk. That was a classic one. But basically, it's just basically you want a certain answer, and you get a certain answer based on how you worded it. And hence, also, sometimes it could be the case that, the Sheikh does have a certain opinion because that is the prevailing opinion and practice in his land. And a classic example that would be protesting. So people say that protesting is haram, it's not from the Sunnah, it's not the way we should correct the leaders and whatnot. Okay, I agreed. Many leaders in the Muslim lands don't allow protests. Not all of them, but some. Specifically like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, they don't allow, even Oman and other countries. They don't allow protests. Okay, but some governments do, and that's a reality which I think is not being addressed. Some governments allow public voicing of concerns via protest. They actually institutionalize and say, look, if you disagree with something or you're not happy with something, you can, in a civilized, non-aggressive, non-destructive manner, voice your concerns via a protest in X area. And this is how you communicate with the government. This is how you communicate with us. That's a different world from those who don't even allow it in the first place, who think it's corruption and facade.
Yes.
The government is saying, if you want to communicate with us, you can do it by letters, you can do it on television, you can do it on radio, or you can protest. The government is telling you, this is how you communicate with us. So that can't be considered to be in opposed khuruj against the leader. If the leader is telling you, this is how you communicate. So you can see that the framing here is very different. The framing is very, very different. And I think that's an example of why you can ask the question to someone whose frame is different from your frame. It doesn't mean that his knowledge is less than you. It just means that it's not their practice. That's not what's accepted. So, another example is that in Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, China, Japan, these kind of countries, they're very big on listening to authority, listening to the collective. They're very collectivist, as in what the people do, that's what we do. We do it. What people do. I mean, just an example. Just look at Saudi Arabia as an example, or the Arab countries. I mean, if you think about it for a second, it's almost weird that all the men wear white thobes. Seriously, everyone wears white, and the only color you find you want to wear is white. And that's a very collectivist thing to do. As in, not like some wear white and some wear pink and some wear green. No, everyone's wearing white for whatever practical or impractical reason. That's an example of a practical, of a social, cohesive, collectivist mentality. So that in that environment, it makes sense that certain things and practices make sense there.
Yes.
Whereas imagine you go to an individualist society where everyone is individual, whereby wearing the same clothes more than to work or to school. I remember
you have to change regular.
You have to change. I remember I went to they had a non-uniform day at my secondary school once, and I wore this click suit that I really liked, the yellow and brown click suit. And then the next non-uniform day, which was next year, I wore the same one again because I really liked it. And I got slated. Is that all the clothes you got? You got that same one? You always wear that one? I mean, I look back, I laugh. But that's because the culture dictates that you wear different clothes to show that you have money, that you're not a poor person has only one pair of clothes. That's a cultural practice, a cultural thing. But I'm going to tangent, but the practical point is that yes, I don't necessarily think, I don't believe that the narrative that you must ask a scholar who lives in the country you're from, but you do have to ask someone who is aware of your situation and who is aware of your situation and your norms, your social norms, your practices, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. So some countries might think that boycotting is something that comes from the government, and you can't coordinate a boycott like that. Whereas other countries, you can do that if you wanted to. No one's going to stop you from coordinating a boycott. You're welcome to do so. So I'm saying in that frame, I think that the answers will be very, very different based on who you ask, and most importantly, these are, and this is I will draw close here, and this is the most important part to take from this point here, is that most of these things are just practical policies or practical steps to take to achieve something. It doesn't equate to changing the religion or anything like that. It's just a means or mechanism to achieve a certain goal.
Yes.
It's just policies. It's like, for example, why do we drive on green and stop at red? It's just policy. It doesn't have to be green and red. It could be the other way around. It could be blue and red. It could be purple, and it could be anything else. It's just policies put in place that achieve a certain goal. And for a large part of it, that's why you find in Muslim. You look at the Muslim nations throughout the generations, they didn't all act the same. In the Khilafah of Bani Umayyah, the Khilafah of the Sahaba, the Khilafah of Bani Abbas, the Khilafah of the Mamluks, the Khilafah of Ayyubids, the Ottomans, they didn't all act and behave exactly the same. Sometimes they did things slightly different.
But my point is that the same sentence, getting back to your deen, how should we, because that in a Muslim country is different, because you have the Muslim government, you have the structures in place. You're dealing with Muslims, it's different, right?
Yeah.
But in the UK, getting back to your deen, what is it that we're aspiring to do? Are we aspiring to
So
enjoy the
why is it
goodness of
different?
Bid'ah?
So why is it different from Muslim country and non-Muslim country?
Because we're not, because the structures and the departments in the government, like you're not going to have Prevent in Saudi Arabia. You're not going to have discrimination against Muslims working in certain places because it's a Muslim government. So
No,
the dynamic.
not necessarily. I mean, I remember in Egypt there was a claim that
okay, against people are practicing and not practicing, yeah, there has some issues. But I'm saying the dynamics in the UK is different from a Muslim country. So when we say getting back to our deen in the UK, what we're saying are our aspirations in the UK. Is it to affect change? Is it to protect the rights of the Muslim? In which case we need Muslim lawyers, Muslim doctors, Muslim academics, think tanks. We need to hold our politicians to account. Because I spoke to one Muslim councillor, other minorities are in the council getting their rights and there's not much representation from the Muslims. Is that because we think, well, it's nothing to do with our deen, it's their council, let them get on with their business, we'll just be marginalized because it's not part of our deen to be in those spaces? So this thing of getting back to your deen, what does it mean when it comes to protecting the rights of the Muslims, standing up for our rights? How far do we take it?
I mean, I'm not going to speak from my own perspective, and I'm just going to highlight my own failings as myself. So, I have never really got involved with the council in any way, shape, or form because of my own personal belief that that they're going to do what they want to do anyway, and fundamentally, my influence is as I don't know. I think that my optimism, I would say I'm more pessimistic on my influence over the government. Now,
pessimistic or realistic?
Well, if you agree with me, be realistic. If you disagree, be pessimistic.
Yeah.
And I think this comes back to the issue of money again. I think we as Muslims would have a greater impact and influence over government if we were in a greater financial situation. As long as we don't have that, then we could definitely write letters and push things in certain directions. But as we saw right now with the vote for a ceasefire in the UK, was it 4 or 5 people who voted to not ceasefire? They had Muslim names and they claimed Islam.
They voted against on party lines basically, and both parties didn't want to have the ceasefire.
So you would think that at the very least, the Muslims who have gone into that arena would at least represent the basics of
some did, a few did, but not many.
I think they lost their jobs, isn't it, as well, when they done it?
Yes, that's a sacrifice.
It shows how beneficial that was.
Yeah, but that shows you the sacrifice, where we need to be.
Freedom of
speech.
Well,
I mean, there's one thing that Thomas Sowell mentioned. He mentioned as a historical example. It doesn't mean it has to be the case, but as an historical example, he mentioned that the Irish, when they migrated to the United States, slightly before the Second World War and after the Second World War, they were extremely proactive in government.
Yeah.
As in their representation in government was extremely high for their demographic percentage. Yet hardly any policies came out from that in their favor. Whereas at the same time, the Jews were not very active in politics in those days, in the 40s and 50s. But they were very active financially speaking. And they did have a lot of things passed in their direction due to it. And what he drew, the lesson he drew from it, and again, this is his conclusion, doesn't mean it's true, but it's his conclusion, was that the financial influence of the Jews was greater than the political influence of the Irish.
Yes. Yes.
And that's why I brought it back at the beginning. I said that I believe that America, Britain, even Israel, they are primarily acting on financial lines. I don't believe they're acting on ideological lines per se. I think they've done their calculations, and they've calculated that yes, Israel's been battered financially at the moment, but if they manage to clear out Gaza and gain control of Gaza, what they're going to gain financially from that moving forward will be so much more greater than what they're losing right now. That's the calculation they made. And that's why with all the carnage and all the killing, the Palestinians remaining in Gaza, remaining steadfast in Gaza is so important. And it's a difficult pill to swallow, but it is very important because the only objective I can see that they achieve is to remove them. They don't care about the killing. And again, it might sound I'm not defending them. I'm not saying that they're morally righteous, that they are great. I'm sure they're evil and wicked people. We've seen it. But I'm sure that if they could kill half the population,
yes, they would.
But they remain. They have failed. But they killed no one else additional than what they've already killed. But they left. They've won. They know they've won.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm saying their primary objective is not what they say, is what they want. They want them to leave, either through being refugees in other countries. Other countries have refused. They don't want to take these Palestinians, and I think that's because they also know the real reason. They also know that that's the objective, is to kick them out.
Clear the land.
So I'll put back to the point is that I believe that Muslims would have a greater impact over the policies of the West, especially the UK, if we had greater financial standing, if we had greater financial influence, and we're greater financial makana. And that doesn't mean, by the way, let's make it clear. It doesn't mean rich. Listen carefully. It doesn't mean rich. It means financial influence. Let me give you a clear example. Our center is registered charity, so we get 80% of our business rates removed. Next door, Sahara Grove pays full business rates. So when we had COVID lockdown and are giving out free money to help people over, why did they give out money to business that paid full business rates and gave nothing to those who don't? Although we're all in the same boat, we're all in the same situation. We need money to pay rent, we need money to cover the lockdown. But why did those who don't pay business rates get nothing? Because we're not their customers. You know what I'm saying? As in, think of it this way: every Muslim who is on universal credit or some kind of social welfare, he's not the customer of the government.
You're
your liability of the government. Your leech. Your liability. No, serious.
Yeah,
your liability. What they want are people who pay taxes, people who make lots of income, who have business. You could be technically just getting by, but if your company is making a turnover and adds to the GDP, they care about you. So if you say, okay, because of your actions, I'm moving my business abroad, they listen. If you wrote a letter to these councils saying, look, because of what you're doing, I'm going to shut up shop and I'm going to leave, they will listen to you. So I'm saying that this is, I would say that's my point. My point is that I think that we would have a larger influence over the political arena if we had a greater influence, a greater financial influence. It doesn't mean that we should be politically illiterate.
Yes.
What it does mean is that your ability to sway and convince is proportional to your ability to finance, and that's why you find that these lobbies, how do they have so much influence? It's not because they're friends. It's because of literally finance. They have bro. AIPAC's release said that they're willing to spend $100 million to support the propaganda, or there's something specific. Something that was it to remove pro-Palestinian electoral candidates. They actually offered one American candidate, $20 million to run against the only Palestinian person in the Senate. They offered it. They said, and because they were friends, and he refused. It came out and they said this is what they offered. But the point is, you have enough money sitting there on the side to give to someone just to be an opposing candidate, not even to win, just to be an opposing candidate to somebody you don't want. That's how much money they have to invest in their propaganda. And that's why one thing, again, what you asked at the very beginning, what have I learned from this? One thing that has become crystal clear, it has crystallized in my eyes, and that is Israel's support is purely financial. All these celebrities and all these guys will come out with things saying we support Israel. Best believe they're on the payroll.
Yeah, they'll lose their job, isn't it? They'll lose their contracts.
Not just that. There's even been cases of people receiving emails saying, if you support Israel, we'll give you £5,000. Even on university campuses, just to turn up to a pro-Israeli
you get paid.
protest, you get paid. That is one of the clearest divides, and I think this is a sign from Allah. One of the clearest divides between Israel and the Palestinians is that the Palestinian support has been purely organic. Nobody has been paid to go out on the streets and protest. No one's been paid to retweet and repost and show outrage. Whereas Israel has
manufactured support.
It's all manufactured support. Manufactured support. That's even to the point in New York, in one of those in downtown New York, they had a big massive I can't remember, it was massive billboard. They had a big advert talking about the October 7th. I had a picture of jogging bottoms with blood on it, trying to emulate the rape thing, the rape narrative.
Yeah.
Think about it for a second. You're actually taking out billboards to highlight atrocity, because the atrocity wasn't bad enough for it to be outrage. You have to pay for further outrage.
Yeah.
Think about that. Just a second. Think about that. That demonstrates that they actually have capital, and they've used that capital for years to sway influence. But there comes and I'll close on this point. There is a caveat here. Also, what I've learned, and that is, capital could only get you so far, because with that capital, they still failed. Because the reality on the ground is that their trust is, like I said, people on the ground are more morally inclined than the government. The governments react to money, but we don't react to money so much. Their budget isn't big enough to pay off everyone. The budget is only big enough to pay off the guys at the top. So they can pay off these guys to act immorally, but it comes to human beings on the ground, they mostly act on at least on some moral level. So that's why in this particular case, because of social media, because they've seen it, I think all the money they've invested has literally not paid off for them. And this is why I say that money isn't a be all in all, but it is definitely something that can help in one regards. At least counter what they do. But for the
Sheikh Yusuf, do we need to organize as a ummah? Is it part of Deen?
Organize as in we need to be united upon Quran and Sunnah.
Yes.
Yes, as in, and obviously the Quran and Sunnah is the complete Deen.
I'm sorry to cut you. I want to throw this in there as well, this caveat. We've all got children, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
And we sit back and we look at our children, they reflect the ummah. Our families, they reflect the ummah. And when we talk about unity, there's a certain context. How we deal with our family internally, knowing how they are, the highs and the lows. And then when we come out on the street and we deal with the Muslim Ummah in general, we may be looking at on a different, maybe we're not as merciful, maybe we're not as lenient, maybe I'm not working with that person because of this, and I'm not working with that because of this. But if we look at our families as being a part of the Ummah, we're going to work with our family, no matter what they do, to a certain degree, if you get what I'm saying. Then when we talk about unity, where do we draw the line? Where do we say, well, I'm not working with that man, knowing that, right, he may not be the most religious person, but for that particular role in organizing a bank, a Muslim bank, then he's the guy. He may have this belief or that belief, but if you want to have the Islamic bank, this is the guy because he knows his stuff. So do you think this thing of unity, we are sometimes asking too much from the Ummah at this time?
I think those type of things, you can't really give a general rule. It's case by case situation, isn't it? Like, how much do you have to be strict? How much do you have to bend? What's the like? Say for example, the issue I gave about the hijab in schools, and they wanted to prevent the someone came to you and you differ with them in their understanding of Islam. But you're still going to present yourself together to the school, isn't it? And say, we want our daughters to wear hijab. We want our sons to be able to pray. We want food. So I think the problem is you can't make general rules like saying you can never do this or you must always do this. Or what is going to be problematic. Just something which was being discussed before, the issue of having political influence. I think, to be honest, this democracy is just, it's a sham. It's a game, because what they're going to do now, for example, America, for their support of Israel, of sending weapons, sending money. Obviously, a lot of American people are not pleased with this.
Yes,
because of the crimes against the Palestinian people, but also because it's their own money. It's taxpayers' money. They need free. They need education. They need medical needs, and they're paying for it. And then they think all of their tax money is going somewhere else. So the system is made. The people get angry with Biden, and then they'll be told everything is Biden's fault. You need to go to the elections. You need to go and vote to the ballot box. You vote, and then you get rid of Biden, and people feel, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, or whatever they say, that they've achieved something. Like even now in the Jewish state, people are getting ready to blame Netanyahu. The security lapse on October the 7th was his responsibility. He's to blame. If they don't get rid of Hamas, which is their stated aim, then they're going to blame him. They're going to blame his ultra-right party. So they will just tell the people to go to the ballot box, and then they will elect a new government. And the people, they feel they've achieved something, it'll be the same system. So I think the same when Muslims get involved in...
no, definitely there is a ceiling of influence, like the
I don't think it has much influence. I don't think it changes anything. Like, for example, we have a mayor of London who is a Muslim, the son of a bus driver.
Yes.
It's quite entertaining when EDL, they say or these people, they say there's so much knife crime in London because we've got a Muslim mayor who's establishing Sharia in London. It's this man, whatever his background, it's not going to benefit the Muslim. It's not going to harm the Muslims. He's just there as a face.
That wouldn't say to me, well, okay, if any Muslim runs for a councillor, so don't worry, because he's just going to be like, what's the name, Khan. Like as you said, you got to look at the individual case. Like I think even in Newham, I think because the councillor there didn't vote for a ceasefire, he got removed, and some Muslim guy got in. That doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that this council is going to implement Sharia in Newham. It just means that she may be better than the other person. She may listen. She may actually do things that's going to help us out.
I don't think she can do anything.
No. So. Okay. One second. As I said, a Muslim council is not going to be able to move Big Ben to another place. There's certain things in the structure that you ain't moving. Do you get what I'm saying? But it's an ear that may be able to influence. And it's like saying, well, okay, let's not have no influence. You can't move Big Ben, so let's not even bother at all. I'm saying do what you can, and then we understand unless the people in the UK become Muslim and they put democracy in the bin and implement the Sharia, we know there's gonna be issues.
Yeah, that is the system.
It's this rock solid. But I'm saying having influence, having to, the fact that we can have Muslim councillors in a certain area if we vote in a block, It's like saying, well, okay, well, if we ever look at Mayor Khan, he ain't done nothing for us, so let's not. I don't have that approach.
Like, yeah, but why does it have to be a Muslim candidate? I mean,
okay, it doesn't have to be. It has to be the best person. The best person. But if we know he's a Zionist, and we got a Muslim, then we'll say, well, okay, fine, what should we do then? Not bother and say, well, it doesn't matter.
I think the sentiment that Yusuf has, and I share that sentiment to a large degree, is that we've seen over the decades that even those candidates we felt were the better, the lesser of two evils, turn out to be as much of an evil, if not sometimes worse. I remember distinctly when it was Cameron's thing. Everyone was saying, vote Lib Dems so that Conservatives don't get in. Vote Lib Dem, vote Lib Dem. So then people said, okay, let's vote Lib Dem. We voted Lib Dem, and the Labour Party didn't win. The Conservative Party didn't win. And also the Liberal Democrats didn't win. No one won. But what happened was that the Lib Dems formed a coalition with the Conservatives, and then we had that whole Cameron coalition with the Liberal Democrats. So what ended up happening as a backfire, as our attempt then to stop conservatives from getting in, actually aided the Conservatives getting in, because they only got in because of that vote for the Liberal Democrats. So we find, and on top of that, we find that the Liberal Democrats didn't actually act in any way, shape, or form any different than the previous one. And I think this is what Yusuf was trying to say, which is reality, which a lot of non-Muslims are realizing, is that we live in a monopolar or one-party system. There are multiple parties that all act in the
same principles.
No, one has a blue tie and one has a red tie. That's the only difference.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think what Ibrahim is saying, Ismail is saying is that even if that's the case, at least we can try and influence it. It's like nudging a needle. Here, the needle is over here, but at least we can make it just like this much. Not so much that way. Just nudge it a bit more. It's still going to be crap, but just nudge it more that way. And I think this is where the religious element comes into play, whereby we feel emotionally and religiously taxed. Why are we putting so much effort only to achieve the exact same nonsense in our schools to our kids? We're still seeing the same people voting for Israel in the end. Nothing seems to, in all the years we've been. I mean, I think I even asked you, bro, the other day. I said to you, since we've been here, since the 90s and the noughties and the 10s, in the 20 years we've been here, what have we actually achieved? How has it been any different from when I was in college? I mean, if anything, you could even say it's actually slightly worse, because when I was younger, you was actually able to do more da'wah. You were actually able to go to colleges and universities and talk about Islam and Khilafah quite openly, but now you can't even do that anymore. So you can even say that it's even got worse over the last 20 years. And I don't think that's through lack of trying. I think there's been a lot of, I think we're probably more politically active in the last decade than we were in the 90s. So it's a weird one, but I'm yet to see a strong case yet whereby that engagement with the government has brought back consistent, reliable fruits. And I think I'll stop on this point here. The only case whereby I felt there could have been a change for the better was Corbyn. And we all know what happened to Corbyn. He's the only geezer who showed promise to actually listen and take things seriously. They
got him.
They made sure he could not get in.
They made sure he could not get in. Because realistically, he was the guy, he was the person who was at our level.
Yes.
At the pleb level. He was at the pleb level discussion. Everyone's at the high end echelon with the he's down at our level, and they made sure that he could not get in.
No, he seemed to have some integrity as well, some honesty.
Yeah.
He cared about people.
On top of that, to this day, they're still making sure. I mean, we saw how Pierce dealt with him, just to make sure
they rough him up.
They reinforce that anti-Semitic narrative behind the thing, which we all know is nonsense.
Yeah,
we all know he's not anti-Semitic. He's the least anti-Semitic person you could possibly get on planet Earth.
I think
to draw this thing.
I think that's a very good example as to the roof. Like, if this man here can't make no influence, then Muslims ain't making no influence. I get the point. But
and this is my personal gripe.
My other point is, when it comes to Deen, to be able to, you might say, for example, it's not going to work because there's a ceiling that you're not going to be able to budge. But to actually, you're saying, well, we don't need to know about the system. We don't need to know how the system works. We don't need to how to put pressure on the system. We don't know how to lobby. We don't have think tanks. We don't know how to choose this individual over that individual. Like, is it worth having these institutes that can think strategically about the Muslim vote or to write policy for Muslims? It's like, well, so done that thing. The only thing that's going to work is jihad. Like, nothing else is going to work. I'm saying, like, no, I don't think we should have that pessimistic mentality that, oh, forget it. If Corbyn can't make it, forget it, man. Just get back to your Deen, start praying, and then wait to meet Allah.
My personal problem, and I'll be quick on this one. My personal problem with this is that I'm not convinced that the costs outweigh the harms. And as to the cost, we all know that politics is all about facade. You have to literally stab, cheat, lie to people's faces to get what you want. So are we expected to, as part of our engagement, to lower ourselves to that level?
No.
Because Corbyn didn't, and we saw what happened to him. That's my point. My point is that he was a person who had what seemed like actual integrity, and they made him a spectacle.
Yeah.
Because
no, we have to be realistic. I'm being realistic.
And if you look at it, what's been released, what's come out is that it wasn't just an event whereby people in Parliament didn't like him and they just kind of pushed him aside. It was a coordinated attack against Corbyn, involving the media. The media were fully behind him. There was a lot of money put behind this, a lot of influence and behind door thing. So I'm saying is that in order for you to compete with this Machiavellian behavior, how much of your Deen do you have to compromise to achieve that? And this is a problem, I think, whereby we had this vision of these Ikhwanis who basically suit and tie, sell out, shave and beard, go into Parliament, because that's essentially what we have seen. We've only seen people of no integrity, liars, cheaters, doing this.
I wouldn't only say it's the cost. It's not all about the cost of what you're losing or cost of what you're gaining. It's how much time, effort, energy you put into it. What's the return? What is the return?
Got you.
But for example, when in this situation, when Muslims organize talks, when Muslims have their own media now in this country, I mean, some of the issues I may not agree with the brothers 100%, but they've got their own media. They've got a public platform. These brothers are so well known. They get invited on TV shows. And as I said, maybe I don't agree 100% with everything, but they're having a major influence, because now, we're living in a world when something goes on YouTube and you see the comments and you get people saying, I'm an atheist, but I agree with this, what the Muslim gentleman, what the Muslim lady said, 100%. I'm a Christian, but I support the Muslims in this. So these people, I think this effort is having more influence than when you have people who are making effort in charity, people are making effort in opening masajid, I think that effort, that time and energy seems to bring more fruit than someone trying to get into politics.
I mean, I ain't saying man should run for prime minister because he's just swapping a red tie to a blue tie or a green tie or a yellow tie. Like, I get it. The system is there. It does what it does. The only thing you can really change to move the whole system. I'm saying to know for example, a council. So, okay, you might want to have planning permission to build a mosque in a certain area, right? if you can't influence the councillors
you
or
have
the
to have
boards,
that, yeah.
or you don't know how the mechanism works, your applicant's getting thrown out. Other communities know everybody inside the council and they're getting whatever they want. So to tap into that to a certain level, you can have some influence, I think should be default, because we may be missing out on certain rights that we have if we don't go for them. So yeah, I'm not being fooled that man should run for prime minister and then he's gonna money. Yes,
Bro,
so
all about the
this
Wonga.
is what you need. That's what we need, brother.
we
I'm
need
telling
money.
you, any masjid you want to build, anything you want to do, if you arrange with the council that you build X, Y, and Z, a park in some place, and you're doing it,
Yeah,
bro,
it's done
they'll
finances.
green light everything, bro. I mean, do you think that Whitechapel Masjid managed to be that big without there being some kind of? I mean, look at the shops next door to them. They've got things set up, bro.
They built flats, they built the shops, yeah.
They bought flats,
Yeah.
they bought shops. You can see how they got that because they were giving clearly back to the community. Clearly, there's tax revenues there, there's business there, bringing trade there. I mean, I remember the days
they're
that was a
inviting the
small place.
politicians on Friday as well. And they're
Yeah,
inviting
I mean,
politicians in on Friday and stuff like this.
I'm not sure how much impact that had, but I mean, if I remember the days when Whitechapel Masjid they had a synagogue behind. Remember they had the synagogue behind, it was a small little thing.
Yeah.
From them days, I'm saying going from that, now going fast forward 20 years, what they've achieved is phenomenal. It's mad. But what I can see on the ground just by looking, they didn't just build a masjid and that's it. They built a whole community. The people that attend that thing, they are voters, and there are lots of them, and they are united in the sense that they listen to what's going on in the area. They have swag. They've got it there. So
isn't that an example then? Isn't that an example of what we should try and emulate in other areas? Like if you ever listen to the story of the mayor, I think it's Abdul Rahman, that they got him out. They done some campaign against him. They kicked him out and he had to fight his way back and
Rahman.
Yeah, and he got back into his
Hamlets, isn't it?
Anyone solo?
Yeah, the Tower Hamlets, and that was a
yeah. But I'm saying that just looking at the area,
yeah,
you can see from the demographics, there's a lot of financial influence there. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of financial influence there.
Not only financial, what is the population there of the Muslim
of
population
Muslims? Yes,
and the Bengali population.
Yes,
of course.
Yeah.
And like I said, these are all council taxpayers. These are all business rates payers. These are all bringing on. I mean, just look at the fact they got Brick Lane. It's not a small thing. It's a big thing. It's right on the doors of the congestion charge of central London. It's a big thing. So I'm saying that personally, that's how you would do it. But the problem is,
they have got clout.
How do you? And I'm sure you find similar things in other areas that are Muslim majority areas. But the point here is, if that's what it takes, how do you have influence that transcends just your borough? Because what we're witnessing is national influence, not just regional influence, not just borough influence. We're talking about influence that made every single Tory member vote no on the ceasefire.
On ceasefire, yes.
And most of Labour vote no on the ceasefire, and all the Liberal. That's national influence.
Yeah, I think when you look
how do you do that?
When you're looking at something which is Israel is their ally, they're involved in it politically, geopolitically, everywhere they're involved in Israel. That's a different level of
Labour friends
politics.
of Israel, conservative friends of Israel.
There's no Muslim friends of Israel or Saudi friends of Labour. There's not. So they're embedded.
Well,
so,
actually,
but do we follow their way? Do we say, because they've done it and it's benefited them, this is what the Muslims need to do? I don't think so.
No, as I said, the issue is not about selling your deen or necessarily doing what they're doing.
Your deen, but why? Because they spend all this money on politicians and they have so much influence, etc., etc., etc. Therefore, we need to do this. I don't think that's not what we need to do.
Okay, in a sentence, we need to be able to protect our rights as Muslims. and to be able to influence law, politics that may favor us as a community.
Yeah.
How we do that?
One thing
I'm
to
saying,
add,
how we do that, we need to have the institutions to look at those areas and find out what is the best way to influence it.
Can I give like a small?
You go.
Rather than saying, well, we can't move Big Ben, we can't change big policies. Let's just stick to our deen. And the interpretation I think that is generally known is just do your 5 salah and then go home and save yourself and your friends from the hellfire, and that's it.
That's a lot. But I think, for example,
it is.
For example, we live in East London. We have Westfield Shopping Centre.
Mm-hmm.
Westfield Shopping Centre, most of the restaurants, they serve halal food.
Mm-hmm.
The prayer place there is massive. I mean, sorry, not necessarily massive. I remember I went there Ramadan once for Maghrib.
I thought they closed it. Have they got another one there?
They closed the small one and they opened the larger one. Yes. When I went there for Maghrib, I was so shocked. I think there was about 3 or 4 Jamaat, one after the other, because there wasn't enough space.
Mm-hmm.
And alhamdulillah, there were young brothers, mashallah, who could read Quran properly.
Yeah.
Here, I think that Westfield has that prayer place, and Westfield has so much restaurants with halal food, not because the Muslims took part in the political system in Newham, and not because, I mean, the money being spent by Muslims in Westfield obviously has a big impact. Yeah. But the main thing is because the Muslims, alhamdulillah, they were determined to eat halal food, and if you don't sell halal food, all of those people are going to eat somewhere else. They're not going to eat in a place. Because the Muslims, when they shop, they are going to pray. And if you don't give them a prayer facility, you will get brothers and sisters.
They'll leave early. It's about keeping them in Westfield. It's about keeping them in Westfield.
Basically, it's just on a small scale. Because the Muslims, they were attached to their deen and they wanted to practice, it basically forced their hand, as in things came about. If you see what I mean. So I think that the more we practice and the more we're determined to practice, we're not trying to antagonize anyone, we're not trying to harm anyone, but we just want to practice our deen. Sisters want to wear hijab, brothers want to have Jummah, etc. like this, and build up. Brothers want to have halal ways to invest, etc. Because of the determination for people to follow their deen, this will bring about change. And the more we're determined, the more change it will bring.
I'll give you an example. So I think there's a school here in Stratford, and they didn't want to give the guys time to a prayer room or something like that. So as you said, the more we get onto our deen, the more we're going to need facilities. Prayer room in Westfield, but there can be some places that say, nah, I don't know prayer room in my school or my college. You've now got to be able to go into that college, write them letters, lobby them, speak to the governor, and say, no, it's our right.
Give adhan in the playground and people just pray. And they do it the next day and the next day and the next day.
That could be, but then they might then exclude that person and say, listen, if you do that again, you're going to get expelled. Who's going to have the understand how we're going to take the school to court or get rid of the governor or have Muslim governors on the school so we can say, you know what, we've got 60% of Muslim pupils here. We're demanding a prayer room and to pray Jummah. If we say we're not engaging in the system, we're always going to be second-class citizens.
No, there is engaging. Like, for example, this what do they call it? This relationships and sexual education.
Yes.
I know in this area and Tower Hamlets, and I'm sure it's in others, people have organized. Each school will have a group. Newham will have a group, and then there's people who are specialized. They understand these affairs, and when an issue comes, like for example, a parent will say, "In my school, they wanted to do this. What should I do?" And then people will say, "Okay, this is what you need to do. This is what the law says. This is what they're allowed to do. You need to arrange a meeting. If you want to go to the meeting, we can send someone with you. when you go to the meeting, this is what you need to ask for. This is what you need to see from them. So these things are, alhamdulillah, they have to be there, and they are.
Yes.
We can't just say, oh, just go and sit in the corner and read Quran or say astaghfirullah 100 times. No, there has to be effort, which is part of deen as well.
Yes.
But yeah, it has to be from both angles, isn't it?
Has to be, definitely. Okay, we hit the 2-hour mark, brothers. I need to summarize this thing. I need some last words before we depart. And I think I'm gonna go with Sheikh Yusuf first. The way forward. The way to,
I mean, obviously, fear Allah, hold on to our deen, and even this situation, what's happening in Palestine, the effect that they're having on the world. You know, I know I don't want to start another subject, but you've seen all of these non-Muslims who have started reading Quran.
Yes.
People have embraced Islam because they can't believe the Palestinian people, what they're going through, and how they're saying alhamdulillah. They're so determined. They have nothing, but they're so determined. So I think there's a lot of benefit from this. And also, I think we discussed before this podcast, this situation is exposed a lot of people. Like there were certain non-Muslims we might have looked up to, and we thought because they agreed with some things which we like, maybe like Jordan Peterson, some Muslims, they were impressed by him because he spoke about certain things about manhood and responsibility and etc. Or even some people respected Piers Morgan because he spoke the truth. But alhamdulillah, I think this situation has
exposed them as well.
Exposed them, alhamdulillah, and there's no way they can come back.
The great revealer.
Yeah.
He can't come back from this one. We'll see.
Unless
hopefully he might even end up in jail, innit?
Front row.
I think there's one thing one person said is that it seems to be that America, and I guess by extension anyone else who support Israel, they're gonna be, what's it called? They're gonna be reduced or destroyed on the rubble of Gaza. That's because
do you think this is it's the end of their empire? It's the beginning of the end of their
thing is,
influence.
like I said, the fall of the West, America is already been in play for a while. It's not a recent thing. Yeah. This may accelerate certain things, but it's already been happening anyway. And like I said, there needs to be. The question is what's the transition going to be? What's going to happen when it happens? The system can't continue. The financially is on the brink as it is. When it finally fails, what is the world going to be like later on? And that's mainly the question.
Are the Muslims ready? Are the Muslims ready to step up to the plate and be in the driving seat?
I don't know. I try to look at things more practically in the sense of when things happen, we see how we deal with it. I don't think anyone can really predict or even plan. And I think sometimes adversity brings out solutions that we probably didn't have. But in terms of summarizing the entire discussion, I think
the way forward,
the issue of
mindset
has revealed a lot about how the world actually works for those who were unaware, for those who maybe thought that these things were in the past, not still happening, or they literally were unaware.
We're civilized now.
Yeah, they're civilized now. I think they've realized actually no, nothing really has changed, and what we almost witnessed was like a national scale of George Floyd. I think that's kind of what we just witnessed. So that being the case, it's been a wake-up call for others, and with others, like myself, is the only shocking part is being how blatant it has been. As in, we've always had this thing that's there, and like I said, because of the social media in the past, or because of the news in the past, it was very much controlled, and we can see how it was controlled. But for now, it's very easy to get the counter narrative. So I think it's almost been a shock that they've doubled down while we know. But long story short, I would say the conclusion is, alhamdulillah, at least now,
it's clear. The enemy is clear.
The reality is the enemy is clear. The reality is clear, and we should try our best to act accordingly. Most importantly, even if it harms us financially, we should stop acting in a way whereby we only look for the profit. We stop acting like these heathenistic capitalists. Even if it costs us more to shop somewhere else, shop somewhere else. Even if it costs us more to live somewhere else, live somewhere else. Even if you have to have years of hardship, if that's your little bit of a fight or a little bit of a, I mean, look at the our brothers in Yemen, bro. They guys got nothing.
They've got nothing.
What they got? They got no oil. They got no natural gas. They got desert and they got Kalashnikovs. That's all they got. But they still said no. For whatever the reason is, they still said no. I'm not going to the politics behind it and the motivation behind it, but whatever it is, they said no. And on their own, they took on the dunya.
Yeah.
And they had the whole coalition of people going to go fight against them, and they said, so what? I think, like I said, I believe that we as a collective have more influence and power than we think we do. We just need to realize that we can exercise that power if we do so collectively and if we do so morally. And our power will be stripped away from us and taken away from us if we can be bribed with the dunya. I will conclude with one last point. I even took a video screen recording of this because it was such an amazing thing on this. I advise anyone to go to a website called Electronic Intifada. They got some lot of material there about Palestine. And then one guy in one of the discussions he mentioned, and I recorded because you know me, I'm into my Bitcoin. I hate fiat. I hate the whole riba system of banking. He mentioned, listen carefully. No, listen carefully. You're laughing, but this was golden. I had to press rewind and record this. He said that Tony Blair, when he was negotiating for the Intifada in the noughties, one of the things he suggested whilst being over there was to encourage the Palestinians to get credit cards and take out loans and mortgages so as to make them less likely to rebel because they fear losing what they've got.
Okay.
Listen carefully. He verbalized the strategy we've all seen with our eyes, but he said the quiet part aloud. He said the way to tame them is to make them debt slaves. Listen carefully, everyone. Don't think that these banks and these others are there to make money. It's there to control. There's a reason why most houses in this country of UK are still inside a mortgage, because it's their way of controlling. That's why, listen carefully, that's why you won't find all these people who are protesting, you won't find them risking their mortgage. Because they've got too much to lose. Whereas I guarantee you, if most people didn't have mortgages, as you know, either own their houses or whatever,
or renting, okay.
But the point is, they could choose differently. Listen carefully. Your behavior as a debt slave is different from a person who is free. You can choose different things. I could choose to move here. I could choose to move here. I could pack up my bags. I'm going to leave to go to Spain, to go to Portugal, to go to Turkey. I can go somewhere. But if you've got a mortgage, you've got a high car and finance, you've got your student loan, whatever, you can't do those decisions that you want to do. So back to the point is that remember how they control us. Remember what hurts them, and find avenues, like you just said, to return to your deen, because guaranteed, if you return to your deen wholeheartedly and act in accordance to Islam in your dealings from the beginning of it to the end of it, you will find abilities and power that you never thought you had.
I think that's an apt part to finish. Yusuf, anything to say before we sign off?
والعاقبة للمتقين.
جزاك الله خير. I mean, Jazakallah khair for your time, brothers. It's been very insightful, and we just pray and make dua for our brothers in Gaza and the Muslims around the world.
Amen.
Ameen.
On them.
Ameen. Yeah. Anyway, brothers, jazakallah khairan, and we'll speak again soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.